I'm Genevieve, and I've lived 73 years on this earth. I've seen joy and heartbreak, raised children through poverty and triumph, and I thought I'd experienced every kind of pain a mother could feel. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for the words that came out of my son's mouth 3 weeks before his wedding. Mom, I think it's best if you don't come to the ceremony. I was standing in my small kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made him breakfast every morning for 18 years, where I'd packed his lunches with extra cookies I could barely afford, where I'd cried silent tears over bills I didn't know how to pay while he slept peacefully in the next room. "What do you mean, Michael?" I asked, my hands trembling as I set down the dish I'd been washing. Surely I'd misheard him. He wouldn't look at me. My successful, handsome son in his expensive suit, the suit I'd helped him buy working double shifts at the diner, stood there examining his perfectly manicured fingernails. "It's just, Vanessa's family is very particular. They're society people, Mom, and well, you look." "I look what, Michael?" The silence that followed felt like drowning. Finally, he said it. "You're too ugly to attend my wedding, Mom. I'm afraid you'd embarrass me." Let me tell you about ugly. Ugly is working 3 jobs to put your child through college while your own body breaks down from exhaustion. Ugly is the burn scars on my hands from the restaurant fire I ran back into to save the owner's daughter, scars that never quite healed right because I couldn't afford the proper treatment. Ugly is the way my face aged rapidly after my husband died, leaving me to raise our son alone, the stress and grief etching lines deeper than any knife could cut. But to my son, ugly was simply what I looked like now, not the sacrifice behind it, not the love that had shaped every wrinkle and scar. Just ugly. "Michael," I whispered, "I held you when you were born. I walked you through chicken pox and broken bones. I sold my mother's wedding ring to pay for your first semester." "And I'm grateful, Mom. I really am," he interrupted, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd started noticing more and more lately. "That's actually why I'm here. Vanessa and I want to set you up in a nice retirement home, someplace where you'll be comfortable and won't have to worry about working anymore. We'll visit, of course." Won't have to worry about working. As if my work had been a burden I'd stumbled into, rather than a sacrifice I'd made willingly, lovingly, desperately. "I see," I said quietly. "And this retirement home, when would I be going there?" "Well, we thought maybe next week. Before the wedding, obviously. That way you can get settled in, and we can start our married life fresh." Fresh, as if I were a stain to be removed. After Michael left, I sat in my worn armchair, the one I'd recovered 3 times because I couldn't afford a new one, and I made a decision. Not out of spite, though God forgive me, spite was certainly swirling in my heart. No, I made this decision because my son needed to learn something his fancy fiancée and her society family had apparently never taught him, where he came from, and what real ugliness actually looked like. I picked up the phone and called my sister, Dorothy. Dorothy had done well for herself, married a kind man with money, and had always offered to help me over the years. I'd always been too proud to accept. Pride, I was learning, was sometimes just another word for foolishness. "Dottie," I said when she answered, "I need a favor, several favors actually, and I need you to trust me, even when what I ask sounds strange." 3 days later, I walked into an upscale salon in the city, the kind of place I'd only ever seen through the windows while walking to the bus stop. The woman at the desk looked at me with barely concealed disdain, her eyes traveling over my department store coat and sensible shoes. "Can I help you?" she asked in a tone that clearly communicated she doubted it. "Yes," I said, straightening my spine the way my mother taught me. "I have an appointment. The name is Genevieve Morrison." Her expression changed instantly when she saw Dorothy's name listed as the referral and payment guarantor. What followed was 6 hours of transformation. They cut my gray hair into an elegant style, colored it with subtle highlights that somehow made me look distinguished rather than old. A makeup artist worked carefully around my scars, not hiding them, but incorporating them into a look that spoke of character and survival. A personal shopper brought clothes I would never have chosen for myself, elegant, expensive, and somehow perfect. When they turned me to face the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, though I did, but because for the first time in decades, I looked like someone who hadn't been forgotten. Someone who mattered. "You're beautiful," the stylist said softly. "You always were, we just reminded you." But the transformation was only the beginning of my plan. That evening, I met with Vanessa's mother, Claire Huntington, at an exclusive restaurant. Dorothy had arranged it, calling in a favor from a mutual friend. Claire had no idea who I was. Michael had apparently kept his ugly mother a complete secret from his future in-laws. Claire arrived expecting to discuss a potential charity donation. Instead, she found me, looking every inch the refined older woman, sitting with excellent posture and a secret that could destroy her daughter's perfect wedding. "Mrs. Huntington," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. "Thank you for meeting me. I'm afraid we haven't been properly introduced. I'm Genevieve Morrison, Michael's mother." The color drained from her face. "I'm sorry, Michael's mother, but he said. He told us you were." "Ugly," I supplied. "Too embarrassing to invite to the wedding. Yes, I'm aware of what my son told you. I'm also aware that he told you I was dead." That last part was a gamble, but the way her hand flew to her mouth told me I'd guessed correctly. "Mrs. Morrison, I had no idea." "Please, let me finish," I said calmly, though my heart was racing. "I didn't come here to ruin your daughter's wedding or to embarrass my son, despite what he deserves. I came to tell you a story, and then I'm going to let you decide what happens next." For the next hour, I told Claire everything. Not with anger or tears, but with the simple, devastating truth. I told her about Michael's childhood, about the poverty we'd escaped together, about the sacrifices that had left their marks on my face and hands. I told her about the nights I'd gone without eating so he could have seconds, about the expensive tutors I'd paid for by cleaning houses on my hands and knees, about the college fund I'd built penny by penny while working jobs that broke my body. I showed her the burn scars and explained how I'd gotten them. I showed her a photo of myself at 30, before life had carved its stories into my face, and watched her realize that I had once been beautiful by conventional standards. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," I said finally. "I'm telling you this because your daughter is about to marry a man who looks at sacrifice and sees only ugliness." Claire was silent for a long moment, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "My mother looked like you," she said quietly. "By the end, I mean, she worked herself to the bone raising us after my father left. She had scars and wrinkles and hands that were rough as sandpaper. And she paused, swallowing hard. "I was embarrassed by her at my own wedding. I seated her in the back where my husband's family wouldn't notice her. She never said a word about it, but I saw the hurt in her eyes. She died 2 years later, and I never apologized. That regret has eaten at me every single day since." She reached across the table and took my scarred hand in her smooth, manicured one. "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing," I said, surprising both of us. "I want you to do nothing. Don't tell Vanessa, don't tell Michael we met. Let the wedding proceed exactly as planned." "I don't understand." "You will," I promised. "Just trust me. And Claire, talk to your daughter, really talk to her. Ask her what she values, what she thinks makes someone worthy of love and respect. Because I have a feeling she may have learned some of these attitudes from somewhere, and if she did, well, maybe it's not too late to help her unlearn them." Claire nodded slowly, understanding beginning to dawn in her eyes. The day of the wedding arrived sunny and perfect. I watched from my apartment window as the hours ticked by, imagining Michael in his tuxedo, Vanessa in her dress, both of them surrounded by society people and expensive flowers and everything that looked beautiful on the surface. What they didn't know was that I hadn't been idle. Dorothy and I had spent the weeks before the wedding carefully, quietly, reaching out to people. We'd contacted the college Michael had attended, the one I'd sacrificed everything to send him to. We'd found his old professors, his roommates, the friends who'd known him before Vanessa and her world had polished away his rough edges. We'd created a video, you see. A beautiful, professionally produced video full of photos and stories from Michael's childhood and young adulthood. Photos of birthday parties I'd thrown with homemade decorations and cakes baked from scratch. Photos of his graduation, where I'd stood in the back in my shabby dress because I couldn't afford anything better. Photos of Christmases where the presents were few, but the love was abundant. And testimonials. Oh, the testimonials. His college roommate spoke about the times Michael had cried over the phone with his mother, telling her how grateful he was, how he'd make it all worth it someday. His favorite professor talked about the essay Michael had written about his mother's sacrifice, an essay so moving it had brought the entire class to tears. His childhood best friend described how Michael had once punched a kid who'd made fun of his mom's old car. And throughout it all, photos of me. Young me, middle-aged me, current me. The progression of a woman who'd given everything and had it show on her face and body in ways society deemed ugly. The video ended with a single question on a black screen. What is beauty? Dorothy had given this video to Claire with specific instructions. Play it at the reception, after dinner but before the speeches. Tell everyone it's a surprise from the bride's family, a tribute to the groom. I didn't attend the wedding. I stayed home, as Michael had wished. But Dorothy was there, and she called me afterwards, her voice shaking. "Genevieve," she said, "you should have seen his face." The video had played on the big screens set up around the elegant reception hall. At first, Michael had been smiling, probably assuming it was some generic tribute. But as photo after photo appeared, as story after story unfolded, his smile had faded. Vanessa had watched with growing confusion and then understanding. Claire had watched her new son-in-law with an expression Dorothy described as disappointment mixed with hope. But it was the guests who'd provided the real impact. "People were crying, Jen," Dorothy said, "openly crying, and when it ended with that question, 'What is beauty?' the room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop, and then someone started clapping. I don't know who, but it started a chain reaction. Soon everyone was applauding, and Michael was standing there with tears streaming down his face. "Did he say anything?" I asked, my own voice barely a whisper. "He left," Dorothy said. "Just walked right out of the reception. Vanessa went after him, but he drove off alone. That was 2 hours ago." I thanked Dorothy and hung up. Then I waited. It was close to midnight when I heard the knock on my door. I knew who it would be. Michael stood on my doorstep still in his tuxedo, his bow tie hanging loose, his eyes red and swollen. He looked younger somehow, stripped of all the polish and pretense. "Mom," he said, and his voice broke on that single word. I stepped aside to let him in. We sat in my small living room, the same room where he'd done homework at my rickety table, where we'd watched television on my ancient set, where he'd announced his engagement to Vanessa, and I'd congratulated him with genuine joy despite never having met her. "I don't know how to fix this," he finally said. "I don't know how to fix what I've become." "Tell me," I said quietly, "when did you start being ashamed of me? When did I become ugly to you?" He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his words came slowly, painfully. "It wasn't sudden," he admitted. "It was gradual, Vanessa's world. Mom, they have so much money, so much ease. Everything is beautiful and perfect, and no one ever struggles or looks tired or has scars. And the more time I spent in that world, the more I looked at you and saw. I saw what I'd come from instead of what you'd given me. I saw the poverty instead of the love. I saw the scars instead of the sacrifice." "You saw ugly instead of beautiful," I said. He nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I became what I once hated. Do you remember? When I was 10, and that kid made fun of your old coat. I punched him. I was so angry that anyone would look at you and see anything but the best mom in the world." "I remember," I said softly. "I became that kid," Michael whispered. "I became the person who looks at someone like you and sees only the surface. Someone who values appearance over substance, who mistakes polish for worth. And Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so deeply, terribly sorry." I let him cry. Sometimes that's all a mother can do, witness the pain and let it be felt. "The question is," I finally said, "what are you going to do now? You can't undo what you said or how you made me feel. You can't erase the fact that you were willing to hide me away because you valued your image more than your integrity. But you can choose who you become from this point forward." Vanessa wants to annul the marriage, he said. She's furious, says she can't believe she married someone who could treat his own mother that way. Her mother apparently gave her quite a talking to after we left. And what do you want? I asked. I want to deserve you, he said simply. I want to become someone you can be proud of again. I don't know if that's possible, but I want to try. I took my son's hand then, the hand I'd held when he was born, when he'd learned to walk, when he'd graduated high school and college. The hand I'd let go of when he'd chosen a world that had no room for women like me. Then try, I said. Not for me, but for yourself. Because Michael, the ugliest thing in this whole situation wasn't my scars or my wrinkles or my aged face. It was the ugliness of character that allowed you to see your mother as an embarrassment. That's the ugliness you need to fix. He nodded, and we sat together in silence as the night deepened around us. I can't tell you we lived happily ever after, because life isn't a fairy tale. Michael and Vanessa eventually divorced. The marriage only lasted 6 months. He lost his prestigious job after word spread about what he'd done, about the video that had played at his wedding. Society can be cruel, even to its own. But slowly, painfully, my son started to rebuild himself. He got a job at a nonprofit helping underprivileged children access education. He started volunteering at a women's shelter. He moved back to our old neighborhood, into a small apartment, and remembered what it felt like to struggle and work and sacrifice. And every Sunday, he comes to my door for dinner and we talk, really talk. He's not the son I raised. That boy is gone, shaped and twisted by ambition and social climbing into someone unrecognizable. But he's becoming someone new. Someone who understands that beauty isn't found in perfection, but in the marks that love and sacrifice leave behind. I'm Genevieve. I'm 73 years old, and I'm scarred and wrinkled and aged. I'm also strong and resilient and full of a love that has weathered every storm. And yes, despite everything, I'm beautiful. Because beauty isn't what you see in a mirror. It's what you see when you look in someone's eyes and recognize the depth of their soul, the breadth of their sacrifice, the truth of their love. That's a lesson worth teaching, even if it breaks your heart to do it.